Are you a professional pillow fighter? Or a 9-to-5 low-cost time travel agent? Or maybe real estate sales on Mars is your profession? It doesn't matter. Whatever it is you do, however complex or intricate, Monday.com can help you organize, orchestrate, and make it more efficient. Monday.com is the one centralized platform for everything work-related. And with Monday.com, work is just easier. Monday.com, for whatever you run. Go to Monday.com to learn more.
Regen auf mein Kopf. Hinter via Deckel muss es die kleine Fahrt beim Top. Geht mir kein Sach nicht, die Tropfen.
Hey everyone, welcome to Kill Me Now with Judy Gold. I am your host, Judy Gold, and this week my guest is John Pavlovitz. It is part 2 of my interview with him. What a great guy. What just all around incredible person, great writer, great faith leader. Just, I adore him on so many levels. So I hope you enjoy part 2 of my interview with him. Sit back, relax, because it's so easy to relax now, isn't it? Nothing going on in this country to make you angry. So sit back, enjoy, and I'll catch you on the out. I don't know what that means, catch you on the out, but sounds cool. Enjoy. You meet Jennifer, your wife, your future wife, and this sort of brings you back. So you kind of leave for a while. You're like, I'm not going to deal with this religion stuff. When did your brother come out? I had read that your brother came out as gay, and you said, I read in an article you had said that made you realize why he had been depressed.
Yeah. So I met my wife, and she had come out of a very similar story, raised Roman Catholic in the Northeast in Philadelphia area, and we had both drifted from our faith, and we came back to organized religion because we were getting married, and you realized, we're supposed to do that in a church, right? Yeah. And so when my brother came out after some of that time passed, so I was actually kind of already an affirming minister, right? And then later on, but yeah, looking back, I mean, that was, my brother had a lot of difficulty in his high school and college years, and realizing now, of course, it was just because he was living in this environment where he couldn't be a fully authentic version of himself. And once he could be, it was like a switch was flipped and everything was different for him in a lot of ways. Well, and it's not even like you can't be yourself. It's like who you know you are is an aberration, is a sin. You're that's like, right. That's the worst. It's so interesting as a gay that I ask young gay people this now. Like, I knew I was gay when I was like 3. I mean, I was like, something's different, you know? And then you get to puberty, you're like, oh, but there's something which is so weird that you can't tell anyone. You know it has to be a secret. And and that still happens. Like, kids still, they don't say who they are. Like, it's like, and no one teaches you that. Like, this whole don't say gay thing. To me, it's like, no one said gay when I was growing up, and I'm gay. So it doesn't mean, but it's like that thing where inside at such a young age, oh, right, what the hell is that? Yeah, and you put you have that, and then you add on to that the existential weight of whatever you believe about religion. And so I think that's the insidious thing, and that's why the work that I do, I'm so confrontational, because I know how destructive it is. And looking back now, I can see what it was like for my siblings to live through years and years of that. And of course you can't be happy. Of course you can't be relaxed. You can't even be yourself. It's like you're like an actor playing a part. That's right. That's right. It's so horrible. Okay. So you get married, and that sort of brings you back to the church, and you go Methodist. Is that correct? Yeah. Well, it was funny because I remember we were living together, my wife and I, and so we're calling around all these. Yes. Oh my God. How about that? Oh my God. Oh, all right. Should we shut this down now? Yeah. And something just went on fire. and we're feeling like, we need a religious presence. So I just did this very spiritual thing. I just went to the Yellow Pages and started looking at churches in our area and saying, hey, we want to get married. And all of these churches, of course, you had to be a member, you had to go to this class, or you have to give money or whatever it could be. And one pastor, a Methodist minister, a female pastor, which had never met a female pastor who turned out to be gay. She said, well, why don't you come down to our church and see what we're about? Then we can talk about you getting married there. Real small country kind of chapel outside of Philadelphia. And we just discovered real people kind of really trying to live, compassionate lives together. And so that really changed things. So it happened to be a Methodist church.
She was a leslie?
But by that time, the gaydar was working better. So I did, it wasn't like before. And so I realized, okay, this is probably what's going on. But yet she was just such a I still have a Post-it note where I wrote down her name and number for that appointment, because it really altered the course of my life, because we got married there and I started working with the teenagers there. Right. And that just set me down a totally different path.
You became a, youth minister, right? You went to East Baptist Theological Seminary. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I did everything backwards. So I was in the church working as a minister, and then they asked me to speak every Sunday at this sort of what they called a progressive service. And so what I started to do was I was up there every week giving a message, and then it occurred to me, I don't know if I even know what I'm talking about. So I went to seminary to educate myself, and then through that process over about 15 years, just ended up, the churches got larger and larger. And I ended up in the Methodist church that I never imagined. And you can imagine, for Catholic parents, that was actually one of the most controversial things that I'd ever done in my life, because they couldn't fathom their son being in ministry and not being a priest. So I can remember we go there and I'm speaking and I'm playing guitar, and my parents are watching this. And I'm delivering the message, and my mom is looking down at the floor. She can't even look at me because she couldn't fathom it. And then, but afterward, service ends, and she says, well, you're a regular Sister Act 2 up there, John. And so that was her just going, okay, I don't understand this, but and it was funny because I said to my wife at the time, if I could be accepted by my parents if I were gay, but not Methodist. And it was really interesting to see, because by that time they had evolved.
Your brother, yeah.
Right. And so, but they still had this block about other faiths within the Christian tradition. So, but then quickly everything changed over the last couple of years.
All right. I have a question. So as a non-Christian, there's so many times there. Okay. And I'm not talking about the evangelicals, because they're a whole other issue.
Sure.
But we have Catholics, you have Roman Catholic. I mean, you have Methodist, you have Presbyterian, you have Baptist, you have Lutheran. Where did these all come from? And like, do you all think each other is wrong? Like, what? I don't.
Yeah. Essentially, every denomination comes out of the fact that we have decided we agree on 9 things, but the 10th thing we don't agree on. And so that's a deal breaker. So we're going to take our 10 things and go over here.
Right.
And it's really, there's an arrogance to it that says, okay, we've cracked the code, and it's not even just our denomination, but it's our local congregation is better than the other Episcopal church.
Right.
So it's a very strange competitive, experience, and it really undermines the whole idea of what a Christian was supposed to be, which was this expansive community of interdependent people.
Right.
So all the denominations are some superficial or some small disagreement.
You become a youth pastor. You move to Charlotte. Did you move there?
That's right.
Okay, so you moved to Charlotte to work at a megachurch, Good Shepherd United Methodist. Is that right?
They're gonna love that shout out. But yes, that's true.
Oh yeah, because so many of my listeners are like, oh, I'm gonna go to and you're there for 10 years. Is that right?
I was. And
also, what the hell is Jennifer thinking? Is she's like, she marries this like illustrator guy, and then you come home and you're like, oh, FYI, I'm gonna be a pastor. Like, what happened? Like, was she like?
Well, we were fortunate, Judy, because our roads kind of paralleled at the same time. So when we got married at that small church, and I'm working with the teenagers, she was too, and so we kind of got reacclimated with organized religion, and we're okay with it. And we drifted at the same times and drifted back. So she was actually helpful in me saying, okay, I'm going to actually leave my secular career as an art director and enter ministry, because at the time it was very natural, because we spent so much time and energy with these teenagers and we loved them. So that wasn't the issue. But once we moved away from family and went to Charlotte, and we're in this massive church, I mean, that was a big switch, because then the expectations were different. And the learning curve was definitely there.
You say that, so you had a sense of belonging. You said you felt a sense of belonging, and that there was a lot of emphasis also on boosting attendance at the risk of demonizing Democrats and gays. So here you are at this mega church, which, like, how many people are in a mega church?
Well, and ours was probably 2,000 on a Sunday morning. So not massive. Yeah. And so what I found there was that as I grew, as I spent more time there, I had built up an equity of trust with the community. I had, that relational capital. And so as I started to change, I started to nudge that congregation. And I was working with the teenagers primarily too. So I always had I had freedom, and we had hundreds of kids in our ministry. And so we became a safe place for LGBTQ students to come. And because I was given a very different message than the Sunday morning message. Right. And I remember the pastor sort of calling me into his office one day, and he said, I just want to talk about, I've noticed we have a lot of gay kids in our youth group. And I said, we don't have more per capita homosexuals. They just know that they're not going to be ostracized if they come out. And so that's when I realized that was a problem for him. And it was not a problem for me any longer. And I knew my days were going to be numbered.
Safe. These kids, right? Yeah. They felt safe.
Yeah. I mean, they were, because I was not explicitly preaching that, that gay is okay, right? But LGBTQ students could see, see my heart. And so they were coming out to me terrified of their parents, terrified of the church. And I'm having to carry that secret with them to try to figure out how do I steward them through this without damaging them more. Right. So that started, and I knew my days were numbered in that kind of church. It was just how long would I be able to do that?
So you said that the church had become corporate, and that there is I loved, this is a quote from you, a conspiracy of silence in churches.
Yeah. And it's actually even worse than that. It's a conspiracy of pretending. In our case, it was, maybe I'm not sure I believe this, but I can't question it. And so the minister's up there thinking he has to be perfect. The people in the pews or the chairs are feeling like, I can't talk about this. And so everyone is just artificial. And what I found as I started to speak more explicitly about sexuality or race, that so many people in the church were just thinking, oh, thank you. I wanted permission to question this, but I didn't know how I could do that without losing that sense of community that is so important. That is the thing that Christian religion leverages at its worst. It leverages that need to belong. And so you'll do anything to stay in community with those people.
Right. Did they realize how lucky they are that they had you? These kids must be like, do you ever hear from kids that came out?
I just married a couple last weekend, which was fantastic. The girl is probably 27, 28 now. And she said, when I went to get married, there's no other clergy member I would think of other than you. And that's important. That matters to me because I wanted, and even though I've drifted from that place, the relationships that I built up for the decades, I mean, it's still there. It's really powerful.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
So did you then go to another megachurch in Raleigh? Is that what happened?
Yeah. I didn't learn my lesson. And so I did go to another church, and it was actually a plant, like a Baptist plant. So it was a Southern Baptist church that had planted what appeared to be one of those giant, funky, hey, we're a rock and roll show. We dress casual. Yeah. We love everybody. And my dad had died suddenly, right at that time when I was pondering whether or not to go to this new church. And you know how when you're grieving, you're just not thinking clearly. And looking back, I was just not equipped for that decision. I didn't see some red flags, but I got to this new church. We moved to Raleigh, and knew right away it was not going to last, because I didn't have the equity of trust. I didn't have the relational capital, but I was still speaking now more openly than ever about all this stuff. Yeah.
So the one you were at 10 years, did they fire you? I know that.
No, they didn't. I left because I just felt like I'd reached the point where I had grown this ministry and, hundreds of kids. But I also kind of felt like, I think I've stretched this congregation and my own abilities as much as I could. And I just thought maybe there's something else I can do. And then again, right around that time was my dad's passing. And I think there was just a lot of change happening inside, in what I wanted to do. But I left on wonderful terms, and a lot of people there. I mean, I still have great relationships with many of them. Unfortunately, as I got a higher profile and became more progressive, a lot of the ministers there kind of disowned me because I get it. I get it. I'm the thing they taught me to be afraid of. I knew what I thought about people like me.
So you go to this megachurch in Raleigh, and is that where you begin blogging, or you were writing?
I had been blogging at the church in Charlotte, and because the church was so large, I was really writing just about parenting issues, or writing about youth ministry, because youth pastors were looking at our church saying, oh, this is how they do it in the big churches. But it was a really closed community. And even as I was writing the blog, realizing my senior pastor was reading them. And so I had to be real careful and nuance my words. So I couldn't say, I don't think being LGBTQ is a sin. I just had to say, I love gay people. And that was, so I learned to nuance words there. And so the blog started to slowly grow, but it was mostly in that closed community. And it was only when I think I wrote about Sandy Hook, the Sandy Hook shooting happened. And I was so angry at what Mike Huckabee was doing, and James Dobson, who was an evangelical pastor, that I wrote this blog post without thinking about my job security. And what happened was the blog reached thousands of people it would have, but then it created a rift in my situation. So I knew, okay, I could either be, an honest, authentic pastor or an employed pastor. Right. And that day came.
You gotta go with the honesty. So you get fired, but you have this blog, stuff that needs to be said. Mm-hmm. Which is, everyone who is listening, go to John Pavlovitz, Jew.
Ring that bell.
Go to his website and read. It's amazing. They're just so great. So you have your two children, and you write this. Wait, I have to put it on my screen because it's just so incredible. You write this post. If I have gay children, this is in 2014, 4 promises from a Christian pastor/parent. Pastor, not pasture. What the fuck?
Well, they put me out the pasture.
I'm just going to read. I can't tell you as a gay how important this is for kids to hear. You said, sometimes I wonder if I'll have gay children. I'm not sure if other parents think about this, but I do quite often. Maybe it's because I have many gay people in my family and circle of friends. It's in my dreams. It's in my tribe. Maybe it's because as a pastor of students, I've seen and heard the horror stories of gay Christian kids from both inside and outside the closet trying to be a part of the church. Maybe it's because as a Christian, I interact with so many people who find homosexuality to be the most repulsive thing imaginable and who make that abundantly clear at every conceivable opportunity. For whatever reason, it's something I ponder frequently as a pastor and a parent. I want to make some promises to you and my 2 kids right now. And I'm just going to read the 4 promises. 1, if I have gay children, you will all know it. 2, if I have gay children, I'll pray for them. 3, if I have gay children, I'll love them. 4, if I have gay children, most likely I have gay children, because as you read on, we are born this way. It's not a mistake. So, and it's just so well written and so important. And what I wonder is, you say people who find it so repulsive, those people to me are gay. Anyone who says, it's a choice. The only way you would be so certain that it's a choice would be if you made that choice. Because as a gay who was born this way, I didn't make a choice. This is who I am. So if you're so 100% know that it's a choice, I feel like you've made that choice. Do you feel like I do, that people who are so obsessed with it and repulsed by it are gay, are homosexual?
Well, I certainly see that played out in clergy. When you see a minister who is, homophobic, transphobic, invariably there is something in their past, and it's a self-hatred, and it's that kind of projection. But I think often that is the case, because you're right. I remember thinking through it as a teenager, thinking, well, no one could talk me into not being heterosexual. Like no one could. I love girls, and no one's going to tell me, hey, here's an alternative. They couldn't sell that to me. And so I knew instinctively that was just a ridiculous idea. And so you're right. When people even suggested it, means they have already made their choice. They just can't, They don't want to admit what that choice is.
Right.
It's not a choice. They've chosen to deny it.
It's so ridiculous that anyone would think we would pick this. And then, and the way they act out, it's just like, you're gay. You're so gay, and you cannot deal with it. And
Judy, a lot of times guys will write to me and they'll go, oh, you support LGBTQ people, might as well come out and tell us that you're gay. And I said, it's methinks you doth protest too much, not support too much. It's a ridiculous idea that if I am affirming of LGBTQ people that I'm gay, and so I'm affirming of women and Muslims, and it just doesn't make any sense, but they'll.
And also, look, I was born in 1962, and, when I was coming out like in the 80s and stuff like that, and all my friends, I was with my friends in college, and we're like, we all realized, we had no idea all of us were gay. We're like, oh, you're gay. It was just the funniest thing. We're like, oh, me too. Oh my God, we're all gay. And I had to prove it to myself. Like I had to be with a guy. Because it was going to be such a horrible way to live. You tried it. Like, okay, let me just, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm bi, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that. And heteros don't go through that. No, they don't.
No. You're right. And I can remember with my brother, one of my other brother, because I have 2 brothers, watching him attempt that. And what it did was give false hope to our parents. And it confused everybody even more, because later on they're thinking, well, you had girlfriends. Well, yeah, because the pressure was there for me too. And you just see how much wasted energy it is. It just does such damage to people. I mean,
just like, let me just try it, and maybe I'll find, maybe one person will change, and then I can have a normal life. It's just the worst. It's the worst. You wrote some of your other blog posts, which I love you so much.
Thank you.
You wrote one about Brock Turner, the rapist, and people, I don't know why anyone would be against that. I mean, his father, Brock Turner, raped someone in college, and then the father asked for leniency.
Right.
And you were like, no, it's not about you and your son. It's about the victim of the rape.
Yeah, and that turned out to be controversial to people. And it's funny because I remember my wife when I wrote the "If I Have Gay Children" post, and then the news, CNN calls, and I'm on all these news channels, and she says, "Pastor says he would love his kids." News at 11, and then I write this Brock Turner post. So over and over, the idea that what I think is common sense decency turns out to be controversial, especially for people of faith. That's the
right.
real strange thing.
Yeah, you make so much sense, and they're supposed to be people of faith. It's ridiculous. Okay, this is another great one. Evangelicals, this is why people are through with you. These evangelicals who use religion to justify horrible behavior. They're such hypocrites. Like, all right, I love you also because you are so outspoken about these horrible politicians and especially Donald Trump. And by the way, your Twitter is the greatest. So Donald Trump, the worst person in the world, rapist. I'll say alleged just to say it, but we all know the truth.
Sure.
Thief. Liar, corrupt, everyone in New York knew it. No one voted for him here.
That's right.
Racist, misogynist, anti-Semite, xenophobic, everything. And yet the evangelicals think he's the second coming. Like, I don't understand it.
Well, what it started off, I think, as them realizing we can get from Donald Trump when people like Franklin Graham and Jerry Falwell, they said Trump doesn't have morality of his own. He will just take on the morality of whoever has the highest, the most money. And so I think they said, we'll use Donald Trump. And Donald Trump was saying, I'll use them. So it became this really bizarre relationship. And I think most Christians don't think that. They know he's a horrible man. They just know he's the means to an end, that he will get them, he'll get abortion rights taken away, that he'll have white supremacy emboldened. So I don't think many of them think that. At least the Christians that I know, they understand who they're in bed with. They just deny it because they want something from it.
Do you feel
now? Sure, some of them are crazy. Some of them are off the deep end,
right,
and they believe the theology. So it's hard to get to the bottom of all of it.
How do you feel about safe abortions? I think it's hard for people who, and I hate the term pro-life because no one's not pro-life,
Right.
But it's such a divisive issue. When I talk to old women in their 80s, some in their 90s, about what it was like before abortion was legal and how many of their friends died, or if you don't believe in I think I'm pro-choice, but if you don't believe in abortion, don't have one. But don't. That's what I believe. If you think it's wrong for you, fine. These people that are so anti-abortion and yet pro-gun and yet pro-death penalty.
That's right.
And yet you don't get a right to vote. We're going to make it really hard for you to vote. How do they not see that?
Well, it's easy, Judy, because what they do is they say, okay, I'm going to just have this stance. I'm going to call myself pro-life. It doesn't require me much to actually be pro-life. I don't have to change my behavior. I don't have to be accountable for the way I live or how I treat other people. And so I always say, are you for humanity? You're pro-life. Are you for humanity? They're the same, basically two words, but basically if you're not for the lives of immigrants and you're don't want people to have health care, you're not actually for humanity. You're just using this semantic idea that you're pro-life because it's a clean form of activism. And I think that makes them feel righteous, and that's all they want.
It's just so disgusting.
And we know that it's rooted in control. It's rooted in the same thing the anti-LGBTQ stuff is. Right. We want to have power and consolidate it, and that's what we're going to do.
And it's so crazy, then these people have, kids who are LGBTQ, and, it's crazy because I had straight parents. It's not like I grew up any differently than anyone else,
Yes.
It's like you had this kid and the kid happens to be LGBTQ. Like, that's what you had, Just like you have, curly hair or straight hair or dyslexia or not dyslexia or, whatever. It's just who you are. This week's episode of It's Judy Show with Judy Gold is sponsored by BetterHelp. And if you know me, which I think you do because you're listening to my podcast right now, you know that I am a big advocate for therapy. I think it benefits everyone. I think there's so many people who need it, who don't partake. It is so important for your emotional health and well-being. Therapy is fantastic. It is in every stretch of the imagination. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, please do it. But please give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient. It's flexible. It suits your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I have switched therapists in my life. I've had many, many therapists, and sometimes it's not a great fit for you, but don't give up. Therapy is beneficial. You can learn about yourself. You can process and just be emotionally healthy. I'm telling you, do it. BetterHelp is great because, when I used to schlep to my therapist's office, it was so annoying. You have to do it and you sit there and you wait. And then I'm telling you, doing it online is fantastic. And BetterHelp is amazing. I know a lot of people who've used it. So if you're thinking about therapy, go to BetterHelp.com. Let the gratitude flow. This is Gratitude Month, people. So you need to let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/JudyGold, JudyGold, today, and you will get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/JudyGold. You're welcome. You've written several books. The newest one is If God is Love, Don't Be a Jerk. And it comes out the day you are having surgery. So you write this book, you start writing it in February of 2020.
That's right.
And when are you diagnosed with your...
I was diagnosed about August of 2021. So it actually happened really quickly. The book was finished and we had this release date, and then I got the test and the test results, and then surgery was a possibility, and it sort of started, pointing to the same direction. So I ended up surgery day was 3 days after the book came out. So that big first week and all this stuff is planned. And I saw 3 weeks before, hey, this is probably not going to work out the way we planned it.
Yeah, your Twitter was like, listen, I got this brain tumor, and I have a book coming out, but whatever. And it actually all worked out. I mean, the book is doing amazingly well. It's good. And, I really wanted to talk to you. We saw Will Smith smack my friend Chris Rock across the face. Mm-hmm. And then give a speech about how he's a vessel for love. And let me tell you something. If Will Smith is love, then don't be a jerk, which you were. I mean, what the hell was that?
My whole take was, whatever you feel, Chris said something that was hurtful, let's say, and let's say he did that unintentionally, but the idea that you can justify hitting someone, where is that ever the right, people will say, I don't justify violence, and then they're going to. And so it's not controversial for me, especially as a person of faith, to say, maybe there's a better way to handle that than smacking somebody. Maybe we don't want to just go around smacking people who offend us because we're never going to stop slapping one another.
Right. I mean, it's, as being a comedian, it's a joke. It wasn't a great joke. You don't get up and then they give him a standing ovation. Like, you just smacked a comic. Not all of our jokes work, but that doesn't mean we should be assaulted. And this has been happening in comedy clubs. You shouldn't fear for your life because you're trying, you're just trying to make someone laugh and it offends someone. It's like, get over it.
Right. Well, in the heart of the MAGA movement that most people hate is how aggressive it's conditioned people to be in public. And it's like, when are we going to draw the line and realize there has to be a better way than, even if people will say, well, those words were an act of violence. Even if you believe that, then you're saying, let's just match violence for violence. And it goes back to people who say they're pro-life and love the death penalty. It's like, you have to try to have some consistency in your life.
So here's the deal. A comedian's goal is to make you laugh, and we get it wrong sometimes, and we should not be assaulted. And I feel like I don't want to live in a world without laughter. And if you don't like a joke, move on with your life. It's a joke. I can't imagine. It's just horrible. So, okay, there's that. Your book is great. I want everyone to wait. Let me read the list of all of your other books.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, a bigger table, hope and other superpowers, low, rise, stuff that needs to be said, and if God is love, don't be a jerk.
They're anywhere, right? They're everywhere you can get books.
Yeah, you can get them anywhere you buy books.
This is the thing I was trying to tell you, is that, this guy's telling a joke. It wasn't a great joke. The words that come out of these politicians' mouths kill people. They literally kill people. This guy was just trying to get a laugh. The stuff that came out of Donald Trump's mouth killed people.
Yeah.
It's so, okay. You're so cute. I'm telling you, you have Jew in you. If the minute you find out you have Jew in you, you have to, I better be the first one to find out. Okay.
That will be part 2 of our next episode.
I ask my guests 2 questions always. Okay.
Okay. Number
1, what do you do for your mental health? Because, I suffer from anxiety, depression, OCD, all of them. And I am we're very pro mental health. So what do you do to keep your mental health intact? And you've had a lot of challenges.
Well, this is like 6 inches from where we're talking, and I've got a collection of chocolate bars in this drawer that's really shameful. But chocolate and wine tend to be,
baby,
one of the ways. And me, I have to withdraw because I'm a serial introvert, right? So doing this work is very draining. So I have to pull away and get silence and solitude and nature in some form. And so I do that. I get really selfish with that. That and chocolate and wine. Wait,
is it red wine?
It is.
Okay, it has to be with the chocolate. Now, does Jennifer get mad that when you want to go retreat by yourself and be with your thoughts?
No, when you have a great partner who understands how you're wired, we've been married almost 25 years, and so we both understand what the other needs. And she's great about. She understands like what this takes out of me to go. I'll be traveling this weekend. Like travel is rigorous and you're giving of yourself the whole time you're there. So it's a pacing thing. And she's wonderful about it.
And what about your kids? Do they resent that or?
Maybe they'll tell in therapy in a couple of years, but right now it's great because I'm fortunate because I do that, but then during the week we're here, we both work from home. And during COVID, we were seeing the kids all day, so we got to go lunch with our kids. I taught my son how to drive. And so you balance it, you work it out.
That's the worst when they drive. Okay. Here's here's the question we ask everyone. I have another personality here. All right. What pisses you off more than anything? What makes you so mad, crazy mad?
hypocrisy of people who leverage religion to justify hating other people and passing the buck to God.
Boy, you really did that quickly.
That's scary.
I hate that too. Like what are we going to do, John? How is this going to get better? Like, what's going to happen? People seem to be getting worse and doubling down on this stuff.
Some of them are, but I think we just know more than we used to, Judy. Right. Growing up, we didn't have social media, so we didn't know how horrible our neighbors were. And now we have Nextdoor and all these other things. So I think it's about the story we tell ourselves. I think you and we encounter people all the time who are really wonderful, compassionate, loving people. Right. And we just have to realize some of that is a false story about how bad it's gotten. It's always been pretty terrible. So we just have to be more proactive about being decent.
First of all, I hope and pray that they get the rest of that shit out of your pituitary gland.
Thank you.
And you are such a good guy. And your Twitter is the best.
Thank you.
And I love how brutally honest you are. And we need you. We need you.
Thank you
so much. It's crazy. This is what faith is about. This is faith. This is real faith and humanity. And
that's
when you look as a Jew, I really wanted to ask you this question. As a Jew, do you think like I'm a sinner and that I'm like what do you like?
I mean, if you're a sinner, it has nothing to do with being Jewish. I mean, it's just.
What do you think of us Jews? Like, what do Christians really think of us?
I think Jews are wonderful. I think they're beautiful people. I don't have any baggage religiously. I just love it because I think even if you believe in your religious tradition, we come from the same tradition. If you're a Christian, so that should actually be a reason to feel closer. For a Christian to feel closer to a Jewish person. So I never ever thought, okay, I need to pray for them or anything like that. Right. So
thank you, John.
But we don't. Real quick, shout out to John Fugelsang because he did. I thought about the day that we met, and I was so glad that our paths have crossed. And when I get to, you're in New York City?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be coming in a couple of weeks for a trip, and I'm going to let you know because I'd love to share a table with you and just talk in person.
Oh, and we can have red wine. Okay.
And I'll do my genealogy before then.
Okay, you better. You better, John. I'm telling you.
All right.
And then you better invite me to your bar mitzvah.
Yeah, I got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, and you're going to have to get another snip, down there. Okay?
Just what I need. Thank you, Judy.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you so much for listening to part 2 of Kill Me Now with the one and only, incredible, wonderful John Pavlovitz. Kill Me Now is produced by Laura Vogel, edited by Colin Schmaling. This podcast would not be possible without the help of Brittany Jo Sowards, who does all the marketing and is my personal assistant, and God bless her. There's not enough money in the world. Now, if you haven't subscribed and left a review, I hate your guts and I hate you really a lot. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. Seriously, there's 8 billion podcasts. I've been doing this since 2015. Just please. I'm not even whining. All right, that was whining. Also, I just want to say, you have to get my book. If you haven't gotten my book, yes, I can say that when they come for the comedians, we're all in trouble. Because now it's like slap, attack. It's ridiculous what's going on. We just want to make you laugh. And if you want to understand how we got to this place, you should read my book. Yes, I can say that. And there's an audiobook too. And if you're going away for the Memorial Day, you could listen to the book in the car. Also, I am, let's look at my schedule, shall we? I am going to be performing on June 2nd at the Wall Street Theater in Norwalk, Connecticut with my friend Jessica Curson, who was a guest on the show and is hilarious. I will also be hosting the Pride Festival, the first annual Pride Festival in Morristown, New Jersey. What else am I doing? I'm going to be in East Greenwich, Rhode Island on June 18th. And I'm going to be in Provincetown all summer. So go to my website, judygold.com. I'll have all my dates there. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, Tiki-Taki, at Judy Gold, JEWDYGOLD. And please protest. Please vote. Please use your voice. Do anything. Get your kids to vote. Do whatever you have to do. We can't live in a world without safe abortions. It's ridiculous. This is a war on women. I'm fucking sick of it. I don't know who's listening now, but I thank you for that. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee right now and listen to the loud noises outside my window in New York City. Please be well. Please be safe. Please protest. Use your voice. Vote. Tell your kids. Do whatever you have to do. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening. And as we always say, so long.